Hi everyone. I am so excited, so thrilled, so over the moon hyper to have Nisha Moodley here with me today. Now, Nisha, you are incredible. You're a women's leadership coach. I can't wait to know absolutely everything about you. So welcome to the Freedom Project, to our weekly chat.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. I got my t-shirt on.
Love it. And I know you represent freedom too, so we'll talk all about that. But talk to us initially about your journey into entrepreneurship. So where did you come from? How did you end up doing what you're doing? We want to know all about it.
Yeah, so I worked for many, many years in cosmetics. That was my corporate job. And I did that for about 9 years. I was one of the women that worked at the makeup counter. So you go into a department store and you see all the makeup counters, and that was me. I was one of those women, and I kind of rose up through the ranks in the industry. And there was a certain point. I was in my early 20s, and I started to develop this really strong passion. It was actually through yoga, but I started to develop this really strong passion for environmental sustainability, and through that, a really strong passion for health, and really saw health as being the ultimate grassroots movement. And so here I had this day job that I worked at 40 to 50 hours a week, and then I had this really strong passion, and I felt like, yes, it was being expressed through my photography, through my art, through my conversations with my friends, in the books that I was reading. But I felt like I have this one precious life. I'm spending 50 hours a week, the majority of my life, doing this work that is fun, and I'm good at it, and I've been doing it for a long time, but it isn't contributing to the kind of change that I want to see in the world. And I felt like it was my honor and my responsibility to really live my life in a way that was in full alignment with the change that I wanted to see in the world. So, and I didn't know how to do that. Am I going to be like a human rights advocate? And am I going to become a teacher? Am I going to, what do I want to be, a photographer? Do I want to be a photojournalist? What do I want to do here? Do I want to get into the health field? How? So there were all these questions, but I knew that I needed to start getting in alignment with it. And so I would say really, on a whim, I quit my job and started working at a holistic doctor's office. This was in Vancouver, BC, in Canada.
Are you from Canada?
I grew up in Victoria, BC, lived in Vancouver for many years. And so I started working at this doctor's office as the office manager and office assistant. And it was great. It was perfect. It broke me out of the pattern that I had in this. It broke me out of my career. Mm-hmm. It broke me out of this sort of rut of being in that career. It had me kind of feeling that flood of endorphins, I suppose, like, wow, I can do this. Like, I was courageous enough to make that change. Now what do I want to do? And around that same time, I fell in love and ended up moving to New York to be with my love of my life, and at the time, the love of my life, one of the great loves of my life now, but moved to New York and got married and decided to study at integrative nutrition. So I studied at the Institute for Integrative Nutrition in 2007, and it was a wonderful experience, and started my business as a health coach. And so that was my entry into entrepreneurship. And, there's a lot that's happened since then. My primary focus now is not health coaching, although it's definitely woven into the work that I do. But my focus in the beginning was helping women find freedom from emotional eating, which was my journey, a big part of my journey with my own health. And so freedom has always been on my radar.
Yes, and I love that. And so what would you say maybe are your top 2 or 3 tips for women that are at that point where, their soul is craving something more? They know what they're passionate about, but they're stuck in a career or stuck in a job or stuck in a relationship or a situation that is kind of not allowing them to move forward. And for you, you took the risk. For me, I took the risk. Sometimes we just have to do that. But what do you think are, the 2 or 3 steps that someone needs to look at and take in order just to start living the life of their dreams?
Yeah. Great. So the first thing that comes to mind is to recognize that we do have choice. Years ago at the World Peace Summit in Vancouver, the Dalai Lama said, "The world will be saved by the Western woman."
Wow.
And I realized that my perception anyways, that what he meant in saying that is that as Western women, we have a lot of freedoms. We have a lot of extrinsic freedoms. We have access to the internet. We can vote. Our voices are able to be heard. Putting conversations of like equality aside, we have many more freedoms than many other women in other parts of the world. And so in knowing that, I had to start looking at, okay, I feel like I have to keep my job because of XYZ. But that is a choice. I feel like I need to stay in this relationship because XYZ. But that is a choice. I am choosing to stay in it. Yeah. And so recognizing that in all the places in my life where I don't feel like I have a choice, I'm not in prison. I actually do have choices. I'm making the choice. And so a lot of people will argue against that and say, well, you have to feed your kids. You don't have a choice. You have to work. And I said, but you're choosing to work there. Right. And and it's a noble choice. You're choosing to, you're choosing to provide for your children. Some people have children and they don't choose to provide. So that's beautiful. There's choice in everything. Yes. And so I think just adopting the mindset that, we do have choice. And the reason that I say that is not to shame us or to have us feel guilty for the choices that we're making, but to recognize that there are infinite possibilities, that there is so much space for choice, and to break us out of, and we can all get into it, I can get into it, but to break myself, or for anyone who's listening, out of black or white thinking, that it has to be this or it's going to be this. Well, no, it's this or this, or this or this, or this or that, or this or that. There are infinite choices. And so that's the first thing I would say is I like starting with mindset. So the first thing is you have a choice. The second thing that comes to mind is get clear on a vision that you see for yourself and for the world that really inspires you. So I like to call this your why. I like to say my why for me and my why for the world, because my big vision is, yes, I'd like to have children, or I'd like to have this particular lifestyle. I'd like to travel more. But that's not all that I want. I also want, a more peaceful, healthy, sustainable planet. I want little girls and boys to grow up feeling secure in themselves and confident. And so there's a lot of things that I want for me and for the world, and they're woven together. And so the framework that I like to use is having people ask themselves these two questions. The questions are, in my ideal vision, how will it feel? And what's my ideal? So I like people to, if you are listening right now or watching right now, get a piece of paper, draw a line down the middle, write on one side, why for me, and on the other side, why for the world. And then start to write down, how will it feel and what's my ideal? What do I want to see? What do I want to feel for myself and for the world that really inspires me? And that sort of, I think, acts as a bit of an energetic North Star that we can then start moving towards the North Star. And so even if you realize your vision for the world is world peace, or the end of the water crisis in the world, and you think, well, how am I going to be able to contribute to that? It's on your radar now. And now that it's on your radar and you start fanning those flames and nourishing that passion, you'll probably notice two things: a growing courage and focus and determination within yourself to be in service of that, and these sort of magical serendipitous things that happen.
I love those.
In that direction. And that's what happened with me. I was really fanning the flames on this passion for environmental sustainability and health, and this job just came along that was an opportunity to step out of this very secure, long-held job that I had into something new, which ultimately wasn't the big thing, but it was the next thing on my path. And that leads me to my third point, which is be willing to take a step on the path. And so, I wasn't ready to go from a 9-year career into the coaching business that I have now and doing what I'm doing now. You know, it's been 8 years to get here. But the first step on that path was taking a different day job that was more in alignment with what I wanted, was more in alignment with where I was headed. Yeah. And so, you know, it's not either or. Either I keep this day job or, you know, I relentlessly pursue my passion. I didn't know what I knew that I had a passion for some things. I knew that I wanted to see change in the world. But I didn't know how I wanted to do that yet. And so just having that first step on the path, which was a new job, it didn't pay as much, but it paid enough. And it gave me the mental space and time to be able to think about what it was that I wanted and dream about what it was that I wanted, and just energetically and in my circumstances got me more in alignment with what I wanted for myself and for the world. So
that's so beautiful. And thank you for those tips, because we're so sometimes scared in where we are right now. And then we get overwhelmed by that big vision, right? Like we might know what we want to do in 10, 20 years, but the steps in between aren't clear. And we rather stay where we are today as opposed to taking the next step. So that is so, so valuable. Thank you.
Yeah, we get focused on where we are now versus where we think we want to be. And if that's not clear, we kind of get obsessive about figuring out where we want to go. Yes. And it's like, well, you might not be able to see it yet because, you know, can you see, if I look right now a mile up the street, can I see a mile away on my path? I can't see a mile away. I can see a block. Mm-hmm. I can see 2 blocks, you know? And so, but if I start walking, eventually I'll see what's a mile ahead. I just need to start walking. I can't figure it out from sitting here.
Oh, love it. Love it. So those baby steps, guys, is what's going to get you ultimately to, maybe you don't even know what that big vision or passion is, but it'll get you there as long as you never get off that journey. I mean, there'll be ways like this, but just stay on it. That's what I think is the big message. And you really talk about sisterhood. So talk to me about sisterhood and how you've created this incredible online community, this support system of women who are so in alignment with making change in the world, making the world a better place.
Yes, so in 2015, we did the first annual Global Sisterhood Day. It was amazing. We had women gather in 80 or so countries. Just incredible. It was so beautiful. And this passion for sisterhood really developed in me. There were kind of 2 things that were happening, like parallel journeys happening at the same time. When I started my coaching business, I felt naturally drawn to working with groups. Part of it was, you know, I was at a place in my business where my one-on-one roster was filling up. So I couldn't take many more one-on-one clients. And so I was looking at how do I serve more people, you know, without totally burning out and trying to hold 40 clients at a time or something that is unsustainable. So how do I serve more people and, you know, do it in a way that's maybe affordable for people who can't afford to work with me one-on-one or what have you. Mm-hmm. So I started working with groups. And it just so happened that I naturally was attracting women. I was kind of putting the net out there, like men or women, and I just kept attracting women. And what I noticed was in these groups of women, they would have often the same or deeper, faster change than my one-on-one clients. And I was like, what is going on here? This is so crazy. I work with these people one-on-one intensively, just me and them. You know, I'm a coach, so I'm bringing all of my best tools to them. And yet I get a group of women together and they don't have as much one-on-one time. They're not getting as much in-depth coaching. And yet they're having faster and more in-depth, long-lasting change. I was like, this is really fascinating. And I started to dissect what that was all about. And the first thing that came to me is, well, it must be the accountability. And then I really felt into that, and I said, but it's not really accountability. You know, it doesn't feel like anyone here is saying, you know, well, you said you were going to do this and you didn't do it. And what did you know? It didn't have quite that flavor. And I realized what it was it was just the simple nature of it being a safe space for them to share what was really going on. And so women were talking about their struggles with food and their relationship with their body and their relationships with their partner, or what the fact that they were struggling to get pregnant, or they were just talking about life. And they were talking about it, often these things that they felt some shame around. And it was landing in this space of love and acceptance and appreciation and support. And so maybe they were getting some accountability, but more than that, they were getting deep listening, compassion, empathy, and cheerleading.
Wow. And non-judgment.
Yeah. And I realized this is actually creating healing, creating true deep healing for these women. And then I started leading retreats, which was, again, just a natural evolution. It was the thing that I felt called to do next. So I started leading retreats. And then again, I was noticing, whoa, okay, this is a whole other level. Because not only is this a group coming together, but they're coming together in this beautiful environment. My first retreat was in Costa Rica. I still lead retreats in Costa Rica and all around the world. But they're coming together in this beautiful environment for an immersive, truly immersive experience. We're having breakfast, lunch, and dinner together in paradise. And we're really going there. We're really talking about the stuff that matters. And I realized, wow, I could get done in a week what we would do in a 6-week or 8-week group program. And then some. And the bonds are so deep because they're having this really beautiful journey together. And so I really started to see, okay, there's something to this group thing that isn't just about scaling my business or making things more affordable. It's actually creating a real deep healing.
Wow.
At the same time, in my personal life, my business was doing well. It was growing. And I was married. I married that great love that I moved to New York for. And we were really struggling in our marriage. And a big part of it was I was putting everything into my business. I was putting all of my attention and energy into my business, in part because we were struggling in our relationship, and I was using my work to avoid dealing with what was going on in my marriage, which created this sort of feedback loop, because now I'm so immersed in my work that I'm not working on my marriage. So the marriage is getting worse. So then I'm avoiding what's going on there by working on my business, which is making, it was just this cycle.
Yeah.
And my friends kind of sort of had a sense for what was going on. And I realized, my girlfriends would call me up and they'd say, so how's it going? And I'd say, oh, it's hard. Marriage is hard, but we're working on it. I was talking about my marriage the way that people talk about the weather. Like, but hopefully it'll be nice. The weather report says it'll be good on Tuesday. Like, I was talking about my marriage that way. And I'm so grateful because I had a few of my girlfriends at the time were like, what's really going on?
Yeah.
They didn't stop at my weather report. They were like, okay, so tell me more.
Yeah.
And they really started to crack me open and kind of get to the marrow of what was happening in the situation for me. And I was experiencing for myself that sharing the shame and the pain and the hurt and what was really going on in my life and in my heart was having this healing effect for me.
Beautiful.
And so through all of that, I was just so clear, just so clear on the incredible power of sisterhood. And so I sort of took that Dalai Lama quote that I had heard years before, the world will be saved by the Western woman, and I said, the world will be set free by women who are free.
I love that.
Not just out in the world, but intrinsically, that we have inner freedom.
Yeah.
The world will be set free by women who are free, and sisterhood is key to women's freedom.
Oh, I have goosebumps. It's so powerful. It is so powerful. And is there going to be the next sisterhood? When are you planning for the next big event?
March of 2016.
Amazing. So every year.
Every year.
Oh,
So
beautiful and so powerful. And I have goosebumps. And when I was on your website this morning, I read those quotes over and over again because it really is so powerful. Oh, you're amazing. And you're doing that change. And tell me, so what does freedom mean to you? I know you are wearing your Freedom Project shirt. What does freedom mean to you?
So, when I was a little girl, my father is Indian, and my family on my father's side is from South Africa. So my father grew up in apartheid South Africa in 60s and 50s, 60s. Sorry, Dad. I'm revealing your age. 50s, 60s. Moved to Canada in the early 70s. And so growing up, I heard, and much of my family migrated to Canada. So growing up, I heard a lot of stories about what it was like to live in segregated society in apartheid South Africa. And we had, my father's family is Hindu. I'm getting to your question. I know I'm taking the long route, taking the scenic route, but does answer the question. So, we had, my father's family is Hindu, so we had all of the Hindu deities and, Lakshmi and Ganesha, and, they were all over my grandmother's walls. And we had Gandhi, and we had Nelson Mandela. So Nelson Mandela was a big figure. Gandhi and Nelson Mandela, Gandhi who said, be the change, be the change. And I remember hearing an interview with Nelson Mandela when he got out of prison, and he said something to the effect of, even though I was in prison, I was a free man.
Yeah.
I remember thinking in my young mind, wow, so he was locked up. He wasn't free, but he was free. And I realized in that moment that freedom had something to do with what was going on the inside. I think in the world of business and lifestyle business, we equate freedom with like drinking a Mai Tai on the beach, a laptop. And there's nothing wrong with that. That is an expression of our extrinsic freedom. A, I'm not in prison, and B, I'm architecting, I'm creating my life the way that I want to. That is my expression of freedom.
Right.
And there's another part of it, which is our intrinsic freedom. So our intrinsic freedom is our sense of peace and wholeness within ourselves, regardless of our circumstances. And when we are in touch with and at home with that sense of wholeness, with our innate nature of love and belonging, that to me is truest freedom, inner freedom. Wow. So freedom is all of it, it's knowing that we have choice and exercising that choice in a way that is holistic, that takes into account what we want for ourselves and also what we want for the world. And our inner freedom is all about being in touch with our wholeness, regardless of what our circumstances are. And it's the freedom that is our birthright, that is innately ours, no matter what our life experience.
Oh, so beautiful and so touching. Oh, you're amazing. I love everything about you. Your energy, the movement you've created, absolutely everything. And if we want to find more of you, where can we go? Where do we find you?
Yeah, so my website is my home online. It looks like my actual living room, so I love to invite people into my digital living room, which is nishamoodley.com. Yeah. I'm also on Twitter at Ask Nisha. I'm on Instagram, which is one of my favorite places to hang out online. Instagram is at Nisha Moodley. You can just search me on Facebook. You'll find me there as well.
Oh, thank you so much. And we honor you and thank you for being on the Freedom Talk. And I can't wait to share this with the world. So thank you so much. And I can't wait to see more of your work.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for the invitation to be here. I'm really honored. It's so great to talk with you and so wonderful to walk alongside a fellow Freedom Crusader. So
and Canadian.
Yeah, and a Canadian.
Thank you. We'll talk to you soon.